Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Mindset and the Lean Startup Approach, especially with the question, how do you build a good MVP? So we started to step into the Lean Startup Approach by understanding that you need validated learning, that you need a good hypothesis, which you would like to test, and with that hypothesis, you go into basically building your minimum viable product. And if we do take that example of a multi-outdoor tool or outdoor multi-tool, whatever, you can ask yourself a couple questions which you might not be able to answer. And the answers or the questions might be, well, the answer is uncertain. I don't know. Will anybody use an outdoor multi-tool? Will anybody pay for that? Is a corkscrew an appreciated feature? And all sorts of things. So there's probably uncertainty in this kind of smart, not anymore, but imagine when this kind of product started to go into the market. So what can you do in order to reduce uncertainty, to answer these questions basically? You do have a hypothesis. People will buy an multi-outdoor tool with a corkscrew. And then you can go into the market and say, okay, I do build a very complicated thing and then I'll see what the customers will use. Is this really gonna help you? Or is it better and is this gonna help you have two tools, one with a corkscrew and one without, and then you'll try to understand who's buying more. And that's the idea of stepping into the MVP way of thinking. So testing, the purpose is learn as fast as possible in maybe also small steps. And it's not answering product design technical questions, it's answering market questions and nothing more. So what you need to do is you really need to be able to answer your very basic small question which you'd like to answer. And if you go into the first step, for sure you can answer, is anyone buying an electronic car or not? And you can also answer the question if people will use multi-outdoor tools or outdoor multi-tools, which you can see on the left side of the slide. However, that doesn't really help you to tell which features people want, and even if this outdoor tool is too big, people might not appreciate it anymore because they can't put it in the pocket. So you really have to go into a market very, very easy with very, very small steps in order to find out which of the tools people or which of the features people will appreciate, pay for it and not. I mean, Eric Ries, who invented the entire Lean Startup approach, he always focused on websites, and with websites it's really easy to do that. You can build a very, very easy lean website with, for example, selling dog food or whatever, and then you can try to differ the navigation with some kind of A/B testing and all sorts of things. But you should do that. You should step into market very early and just give it a try. What does work out and what does not? And even if you screw it up with some of the customers, there's enough customers for this kind of tool left that will never hear about what you screwed up with others. This is, by the way, a good answer again to the question of Jeffrey Timmons: why is a fragmented market of higher potential for entrepreneurs than a concentrated market? Because you can do a lot more experiments in those kind of markets. And then sometimes I do hear our engineers from our university say a couple things that might hinder them from doing this MVP approach in markets. And they say, okay, they're basically afraid. They're basically afraid to get too visible too early on. But honestly, the only way to find out if you can be successful is by going into the market. But they are afraid that competition will take away their ideas, or that they lose some kind of brand value. If they screw up with some customers, they have legal fears. Honestly, if you are the best one to learn with your validated learning, if you're the best one on problem solution fits, if you're the first one who found the good problem solution fit, nobody can take that away from you. And if you're faster than the others, you'll get the market. So nobody can steal that. This is not there. And you won't really lose your brand because you don't have a brand as an entrepreneur. Don't take that too serious. You'll build a brand later on, but only with many people. So at the very beginning, which is a disadvantage, nobody knows you, but the advantage is then you can do a lot more experience. So don't be afraid to become visible with your product. Really go into markets. And this is actually what Zalando did. Zalando, again, a great story in the German entrepreneurial scene, and not only Germany, but all over the world. They launched a website where they offered shoes, and I do remember people saying you can't sell shoes in the internet because people don't buy shoes. People have to try it on, people want to see that, and all sorts of things. But they built a website, and when a shoe was sold, the founding team went to the shoe store, bought it, and sent it out. And that was a good way to understand whether the market will buy or not. This was actually the main hypothesis. Will the market buy sneakers online? And sneakers are pretty standardized, so it's easy with that. But don't buy the shoes by yourselves. Just use the shoe store, even the shoe store not knowing that you will use them in order to be their supplier and then sell them. And whenever the idea was validated, then they could go out for more. But for validation of the idea, only actually money for the website was needed and some money because you were probably making losses with every shoe you sold, but that's a different story. And this is actually what one of the co-founders, Ruben Ritter, always said. For us, small, agile units are the key to maintaining the entrepreneurial spirit. So every day they do validated learning. These units have the necessary autonomy to make own decisions and do what they think is best for Zalando. So they can do A/B testing, they can do experience, because what is important, not that the management knows all about all experience, but that every department does small experience to enhance the learning process, and that is to keep the company lean.